Imagine losing everything you've built in the blink of an eye. The smell of smoke, the stifling heat, flames consuming every memory, every hope. Mike Johnson, an ordinary mechanic, watches helplessly as his house turns to ashes. The despair is overwhelming and the future feels empty. But as he digs through the rubble, he finds something unexpected. An old, charred diary, still readable, filled with secrets that could change his life forever. This isn't just a book, it's a roadmap to a world of wealth and power. With the help of Sarah, a bold and ambitious neighbor, Mike dives headfirst into a dangerous game. Buried secrets, fragile alliances, and ruthless rivals emerge. They follow the path laid out in the yellowed pages. What starts as a golden opportunity quickly becomes a test of courage, loyalty, and values. What will they find in the ashes? And how far are they willing to go for a chance to rebuild their lives? The flames danced wildly, devouring everything I had ever called home. My heart raced, pounding in my chest like a drum, as I stood frozen at the edge of my driveway. The crackling of wood and the roar of the fire filled the air, drowning out any other sound. "Mike, we need to get back," Sarah, my neighbor, shouted, tugging at my arm. Her voice barely broke through the chaos, but I could see the panic in her eyes. I can't just watch it burn," I shouted back, my voice hoarse with desperation. The fire licked at the roof of my house, sending embers spiraling into the night sky like shooting stars. Each flicker felt like a piece of my life being snuffed out, a memory turning to ash. The fire trucks arrived, their sirens blaring, but it felt like an eternity before they could bring the inferno under control. I watched helplessly as the firefighters fought valiantly. The flames had a mind of their own, consuming everything in their path. My tools, my pictures, the used car parts I had collected over the years, gone. My fists clenched as I struggled against the swell of despair. When the fire finally died down, I approached the smoldering ruins. The scent of charred wood and smoke thickened the air. I felt as if I were walking through a graveyard of my own making. "It's all gone," I whispered, my throat dry and tight. Sarah stood next to me, her expression a mix of sympathy and concern. "I'm so sorry, Mike," she said softly, her eyes reflecting the flickering remains of my home. "Is there anything left?" Taking a deep breath, I stepped carefully over the debris, my heart heavy with each step. I began to sift through the ashes, my fingers brushing against the cold remnants of my life. Suddenly, something caught my eye, a glimmer of something amid the blackened rubble. I knelt down and pulled it out, revealing an old, charred diary. Its leather cover was cracked, and the edges were singed, but it felt oddly significant in my hands. "What is that?" Sarah asked, leaning closer, her curiosity piqued. "I don't know," I replied, my voice shaky as I brushed off the ash. "It looks like a diary, maybe from someone important." I opened it gingerly, wincing as the pages crumbled slightly under my touch. The writing was barely legible, faded but still holding the promise of secrets within its lines. "Wow, look at this," I murmured, squinting at the ink. "These notes, they seem like business strategies. This could be worth something." Sarah's eyes widened with interest. "Business strategies? You mean, like investment tips?" "Maybe," I said, flipping through the pages with renewed hope. If these are legitimate, they could change everything for me. As I read on, the outlines of investments and plans began to take shape. My heart raced. The idea of rebirth, of rising from the ashes of my loss, ignited a spark of hope within me. "This could be my chance," I said, my voice growing stronger. "I could turn my life around." "Mike, we could figure this out together," Sarah suggested, her enthusiasm bubbling over. "I'm studying business. Maybe I can help you make sense of it all." I hesitated for a moment, the weight of my situation pressing down on me. "You'd really want to help? I mean, this is a huge risk." "Boris, I believe in you," she replied, her eyes brightening with determination. "This could be the opportunity you've been waiting for. We could do this together." Her confidence was infectious, and for the first time since the fire, I felt a glimmer of excitement. "All right, let's do it," I said, a smile breaking through the cloud of despair. "Let's see what this diary has to offer." Together, we sat amidst the ruins, the smell of smoke still lingering in the air. The future felt uncertain, but for the first time, I could see a path forward. It wasn't just about the money, it was about reclaiming my life. As I sifted through the charred remains of my home, the acrid smell of smoke still clung to the air. mixing with the scent of burnt wood and memories. I was lost in my thoughts when I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. It was Sarah, my neighbor. Her face was a mixture of concern and curiosity as she surveyed the wreckage around us. "Mike, I can't believe this happened," she said softly, her eyes scanning the ruins. "Is there anything I can do to help?" I shrugged, feeling a wave of helplessness crash over me. I don't even know where to start. Everything's gone. My tools, my workbench, even the stupid car I was fixing. "Let's just look through the debris together," she suggested, her voice steady. "You never know what you might find." We began to sift through the ashes and debris, carefully moving aside burnt pieces of furniture and shattered glass. It felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Then, as I dug deeper, my fingers brushed against something strange. I pulled it out, revealing a scorched but surprisingly intact leather-bound diary. "What's that?" Sarah asked, her eyes lighting up with intrigue. "I think it's a journal," I replied, my heart racing. It belonged to a local magnate. I remember hearing stories about him when I was growing up. "Open it," she urged, leaning closer with excitement. With trembling hands, I flipped it open, revealing pages filled with elegant handwriting, albeit slightly singed at the edges. My mind raced as I scanned the yellowed pages. He wrote about his business strategies, investment tips. It's like he was documenting everything that made him successful. "Wow," Sarah breathed, her eyes wide. "This could be a goldmine, Mike. We need to figure out how to decode it." I felt a spark of hope ignite in my chest. "You think so? I mean, it's just a diary." She placed a hand on my shoulder. "No, it's more than that. This could change your life. We could work on this together. I've studied business and finance. I could help you make sense of it." I looked at her, surprised by her enthusiasm. "You really think we can do this? I'm just a mechanic. And I'm just a student," she countered, a determined glint in her eye. "But together, we can make it work. Let's meet tomorrow and dive into this." "All right," I agreed, a mix of apprehension and excitement bubbling within me. "Let's give it a shot." The next day, we met at a small cafe, armed with coffee and the diary. Sarah spread the pages out on the table, her brows furrowed in concentration. "Okay, let's start with this entry here. He talks about diversifying investments and seizing opportunities." I leaned in closer, trying to absorb the information. "It sounds complicated." "It is, but we can break it down," she replied, her fingers tracing the lines. "Look, he mentions a few businesses that succeeded because they took calculated risks. We can research these companies and see how they did it." As we worked through the diary, I felt a sense of camaraderie developing between us. We shared our ambitions, fears, and dreams, weaving our thoughts into a tapestry of possibilities. "What's your dream, Sarah?" I asked, curious. "I want to make a difference," she said thoughtfully. "I've always wanted to bridge the gap between business and community. I want to help people, not just make money." "That's noble," I said, impressed. "I guess I just want to have enough to be comfortable, to not worry about the next paycheck." She nodded, understanding. "But this could be the chance to do more than that, Mike. You have potential. You just need to believe in yourself." With each passing hour, our excitement grew. We were a team, and it felt exhilarating. Finally, we hit a breakthrough when we made our first investment in a small tech startup that the diary had mentioned. Sarah's eyes sparkled as we watched the numbers climb on the screen. "We did it," she exclaimed, her voice filled with disbelief and joy. "Our first profit." I felt an adrenaline rush, a heady mix of excitement and fear. This is unbelievable. But what if it's just luck? What if we're in over our heads? "Every successful investor has to take that risk," she said, her tone reassuring. "We can't let fear dictate our decisions. We need to keep going, keep learning." As we celebrated our small victory, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the precipice of something much larger than ourselves. The diary had opened a door, and I was terrified of what lay beyond it. But with Sarah by my side, I felt an inkling of hope. A flicker of ambition that I hadn't realized was buried deep inside me. Together, we were ready to step into the unknown. As atmosphere in the conference room was thick with tension, a stark contrast to the polished smiles and tailored suits surrounding me. I had just made my first real investment, and while excitement bubbled beneath the surface, an unsettling feeling nagged at the back of my mind. That's when I saw him, Jack Thompson. He was strikingly charismatic, his presence commanding attention as he effortlessly weaved through the crowd. But there was something about him that sent chills down my spine. As I stood near the refreshments, pretending to be engrossed in conversation, I felt his gaze on me. I turned slightly, and our eyes met. He approached with a confident stride, his smile wide yet devoid of warmth. "Mike Johnson, right? The mechanic turned investor. Quite the story you have," he said, extending his hand. "Yeah, that's me," I replied, shaking his hand, feeling the coldness of his grip, just trying to navigate this world. Jack leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "Be careful, Mike. This game isn't as simple as it looks. There are rules you might not be aware of yet." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" Chuckled softly, but there was no humor in his eyes. "I know things about your family, things you wouldn't want to come to light. Just remember, the higher you climb, the further you can fall." His words hung heavily in the air. I forced a casual smile, but inside, a wave of fear crashed over me. "I appreciate the warning, Jack, but I'm not afraid of a little competition." "Competition? Oh, it's more that," he said, his tone shifting to something darker. "You might want to watch your back." With that, he turned, leaving me shaken and bewildered. Later that evening, I shared my encounter with Sarah as we sat in my makeshift living room, the remnants of my old life still scattered around us. She looked up from the diary, her brow furrowed. "Jack Thompson? The guy is ruthless. If he's taking an interest in you, it's not because he wants to be your friend," she warned, leaning forward. "I know," I said, running a hand through my hair. "He mentioned my family. It felt personal." "Personal?" she echoed, her voice tinged with concern. "What do you think he knows?" I sighed, the weight of the past pressing down on me. My dad had his fair share of mistakes. I tried to put it all behind me, but maybe it's not that easy. Sarah placed her hand on mine, grounding me. "We'll figure this out together, okay? You can't let him intimidate you. This is your chance to build something new." "Right," I replied, trying to muster some conviction. But as the days passed, I couldn't shake the unease. Jack's words lingered in my mind like a persistent shadow. Then, one afternoon, Sarah dropped a bombshell. "Mike, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice shaky. "My family has ties to the magnate, to the diary." I blinked, the ground shifting beneath me. "What do you mean? I thought you were just a neighbor helping me out." "I am, but my family, they had dealings with him. I didn't know until recently, but it changes everything. I didn't want to influence you, but now I'm questioning my motivations." "Your motivations?" I felt a mix of anger and betrayal boiling within me. "Are you in this for the money or for some family legacy?" "No, not like that," she protested, her eyes pleading. "I wanted to do something good, to honor my family's past mistakes. I thought we could build something together, something honest." "Honest?" I scoffed, frustration bubbling over. "Do you even know what honesty means in this world? This isn't the playground anymore, Sarah. We're in deep, and I can't help but wonder if we're just pawns in someone else's game." Silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken fears and doubts. I could see the hurt in her eyes, and for a moment I regretted my harsh words. But it was too late. The damage was done. The trust we had built began to fracture, and I felt the weight of the past creeping back in, threatening to consume us both. "How can we even move forward?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We have to confront it, Mike. Together," she said, her determination shining through the cracks of uncertainty. I nodded, though doubt still lingered. As we delved deeper into the diary, the stakes grew higher, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched by unseen eyes. With every page we turned, it became increasingly clear that the path to success was paved with shadows, and we were standing on the edge of a precipice, unsure of what lay below. As our small investment began to gain traction, I could feel the weight of the world shifting around me. Success was intoxicating, but it came with its own set of complications. One evening, while scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon an article featuring Sarah and me. The headline read, "Local Mechanic Turns Investor, The Rise of Mike Johnson." I couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and trepidation. I had gone from fixing cars to fixing my life, but now I was the center of attention. "Mike, have you seen this?" Sarah asked, waving her phone in front of me. We were sitting at our usual spot in the local coffee shop. the scent of roasted beans filling the air. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, but I could sense an underlying tension. We're trending. People want to know our story. Yeah, but with this kind of attention comes scrutiny, I replied, running my fingers through my hair. Feels like we're under a microscope now. She leaned back, crossing her arms. Are you worried about what people will say? Or is it something else? It's not just the attention, it's the envy that comes with it. I can already feel the jealousy brewing among some of our old friends. David, for one, he's not taking this well. My voice trailed off as I thought about David's bitter return to my life. Trust me, if David tries to stir the pot, we won't let him, Sarah said, tone firm. We worked hard for this. We deserve to celebrate our success. But I could see the doubt flickering in her eyes as she said it. As the days passed, the media buzzed, and I noticed subtle changes in the atmosphere around us. Friends became distant, their smiles tinged with something darker. The local diner, once a comfortable haven, now buzzed with whispers that followed me wherever I went. It was unnerving. One afternoon, David confronted me while I was fixing a customer's car. Think you're a big shot now, huh? He spat, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. Just because you got lucky with a stupid diary? Lucky, I shot back, wiping my hands on a rag. You have no idea what we've been through, David. This isn't just luck, it's hard work. Hard work? All I see is a mechanic playing dress-up in a suit he can't afford. Sneered, stepping closer. I thought we were friends. Clearly, you've forgotten where you came from. I clenched my fists, feeling the anger boil inside me. And you've forgotten how to support your friends. If you're here to tear me down, you can leave. He chuckled darkly. Just remember, Mike, every success has its price. I'll be watching. That conversation left a sour taste in my mouth, and the tension between Sarah and me began to grow. One evening, as we sat in her living room going over our plans, she finally broke the silence. Mike, do you think we're in over our heads? What do you mean? I asked, looking up from the spreadsheets scattered across the coffee table. I don't know. It's just that with all this attention, I feel like we're being pulled in different directions. The money, fame, it's starting to feel like a burden, she confessed, voice barely above a whisper. I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck. I get it. It's just, we worked so hard for this. I don't want to lose it, but I also don't want to lose us in the process. Exactly. I've been thinking a lot about the magnate and the legacy he left behind. What if we're just repeating history without even realizing it? She said, brow furrowing with concern. Are you saying we should stop? I asked, my heart pounding at the thought of losing everything we had built. No, I'm just saying we need to be careful. The fame is intoxicating, but it can also blind us to what really matters. She replied, eyes searching mine. Then let's promise to keep each other grounded, I suggested, reaching for her hand. No matter what happens, we'll face it together. She nodded, squeezing my hand tightly, but I could see the uncertainty lingering in her gaze. As much as we wanted to believe in our partnership, the external pressures were beginning to fracture our once solid foundation. The weight of success felt heavier than I had anticipated, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on shaky ground, teetering on the edge of something we couldn't control. The weight of success was starting to feel like a noose around my neck. As I sat across from Sarah in our makeshift office, the remnants of our first successful investment still lingering in the air, I could sense the tension between us. It was palpable, thick like the smoke that had once consumed my home, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our partnership was teetering on the edge of collapse. Mike, we need to talk about Jack, Sarah said, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of anxiety. She had been quiet for days, and it was clear that whatever was bothering her had reached a boiling point. Yeah, I know he's been sniffing around. The guy gives me the creeps, I replied, leaning back in my chair, trying to project calm while my stomach churned with unease. But we can't let him get to us. We're doing well. Doing well? We're just getting lucky, she interrupted, her eyes narrowing. Jack knows something, Mike. He's not just a rival, he's a threat. The way he looked at us at that last meeting, it was like he was sizing us up for a kill. I rubbed my temples, the headache of our situation intensifying. Jack Thompson was not just any investor. He was a shark in a suit, and I felt like a minnow swimming in waters I didn't fully understand. "What do you suggest we do? We can't just hide from him. We need to be proactive," she said, her voice rising with urgency. "If he's trying to play us against each other, we need to make sure we're united. I don't want to end up like those businesses that fall apart because someone whispered a rumor in the wrong ear." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the reality of the cutthroat world we had stepped into. I could feel the doubt creeping in, gnawing at the edges of my confidence. "You really think he's trying to drive a wedge between us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't just think it, Mike. I know it. He approached me after that meeting, and he mentioned you," she said, her gaze dropping to the table. "He insinuated that you had a past, that he could ruin you if he wanted." My heart raced, and suddenly the room felt suffocating. "What did you say?" I asked, fear creeping into my tone. "I told him to back off," she replied defiantly. "But what if he doesn't? What if he finds something?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words settle over me like a shroud. "Jack can't just ruin everything we've built. We have to stay focused on our goals." Just then, the phone rang, and I snapped it up, half expecting it to be another piece of bad news. "Hello?" I answered. "Mike, it's David," came the familiar voice on the other end, filled with a mix of anger and desperation. "I need to talk to you. It's important." "David, what do you want?" I shot back, my patience dwindling. The last time we spoke, the conversation had gone south quickly, and I wasn't eager to revisit old wounds. "Just meet me. I have something that could help you with Jack," he said, his tone shifting from confrontational to almost pleading. I exchanged a glance with Sarah, who raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Fine, where?" I relented, knowing full well that meeting David could open a can of worms we weren't ready to deal with. "Let's say, at the diner, in an hour," he said before hanging up. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked, concern etched across her features. "He's not exactly trustworthy." "I know, but if he has something on Jack, we need to hear it," I replied, trying to project a sense of confidence I didn't feel. As we prepared to leave, I could feel the storm brewing inside me. The stakes had risen, and the complications were piling up. I wasn't just fighting against Jack, I was battling my own past, the specters of my decisions, and the thin threads of trust that connected me to Sarah. The road ahead was riddled with uncertainty, and as much as I wanted to believe we could navigate it together, a nagging doubt lingered. Was I prepared to lose everything again? The glitz and glam of our newfound success felt intoxicating. I stood in the grand ballroom, the chandelier's crystals reflecting a kaleidoscope of light, illuminating the faces of the elite. My heart raced with a mix of excitement and dread. I had never imagined I would find myself in such a lavish place, mingling with people who once seemed like distant figures in magazines. "Mike, over here," Sarah called, waving from across the room. She looked stunning in a fitted emerald dress that hugged her curves, her hair cascading down her shoulders in soft waves. I made my way through the crowd, feeling the weight of the evening press down on me, each step a reminder of how far we'd come from the ashes of my burnt home. "Do you believe this?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with a mix of disbelief and joy. "Just a few months ago, we were sifting through rubble, and now—" "I know," I replied, taking a deep breath. "But it all feels surreal. I can't shake this feeling that it's going to slip away any moment." She tilted her head, concern creeping into her expression. "You're not having second thoughts, are you? We worked hard for this, Mike." "No, it's not that," I said, forcing a smile. I hesitated, searching for the right words. "I guess I just missed the simplicity of our earlier days. Life was never simple for us," she said, voice steady. "But we have each other, and we're making this work. We can't let the glamour distract us from our goals." As the night wore on, we were swept into conversations with affluent investors and socialites, each more charming and polished than the last. I smiled and nodded, but inside I felt like an outsider. The laughter, the clinking of champagne glasses, the way they discussed stocks and bonds as if they were discussing the weather, it all felt foreign to me. "Let's grab some air," I suggested to Sarah, unable to shake off the feeling of suffocation. We slipped outside onto the balcony, where the cool night air brushed against my skin, a welcome reprieve from the suffocating atmosphere inside. Better? She asked, leaning against the railing and gazing at the city lights twinkling below. Much, I admitted. But it's not just the crowd. Keep thinking about what we're doing. Is this really what we wanted? What do you mean? She asked, her brow furrowed. I mean, are we chasing success, or are we just caught up in this whirlwind? I don't want us to lose sight of what matters. Sarah crossed her arms, her expression thoughtful. I get that, but we've worked so hard. You can't let fear of losing it all hold you back. Remember the diary? It was filled with lessons, not just about business, but about life. Yeah, but the magnate's life was filled with regrets too, I countered, my voice strained. What if we're just repeating his mistakes? Then we learn from them, he said firmly. We take what we can from this experience and use it to build something better. But we can't let the fear paralyze us. Her words hung in the air, and I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Just then, a group of well-dressed guests stepped onto the balcony, breaking the moment. Their laughter echoed off the walls, pulling me back into the overwhelming reality of our situation. Mike, you've got to come see this, one of them shouted, beckoning us back inside. I exchanged a glance with Sarah, and I could see the apprehension mirrored in her eyes. As we re-entered the ballroom, the atmosphere had shifted. A sense of urgency filled the air. Whispers about a scandal involving the magnate we'd based our plans on were circulating. I felt the ground beneath me shift. Did you hear? One guest said, nudging another. They say the magnate had ties to some shady dealings. What if it affects their investments? My heart sank. Caught Sarah's eye, and her expression mirrored my own rising fear. The success we'd fought to achieve was at risk, and the shadows of the past loomed larger than ever. As the party continued, I felt a gnawing emptiness within me. The realization that wealth and fame couldn't fill the void left by my fading sense of self. The tension in the air was palpable as I paced back and forth in my small living room. The glow of the television flickered, the news anchor's voice droning on about the latest scandal surrounding the magnate whose secrets had propelled my life into a whirlwind. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything we had built was about to come crashing down. Just as I was lost in thought, my phone buzzed violently on the table. A message from Sarah. Mike, you need to see this. David is making headlines. They're talking about us. My heart sank. David, my old friend, had always been the one to get jealous of my successes. I could almost feel the bitter taste of betrayal in my mouth as I typed back. I'm on my way. I grabbed my jacket and headed out the door, cool night air hitting my face like a slap. When I arrived at Sarah's place, she was already waiting for me, face a mix of concern and anger. Did you see what he said? She asked, pointing at her laptop. The screen illuminated her features, and I leaned closer, my stomach churning. David claims we've been involved in shady dealings with the magnate's estate. He's painting us as con artists, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. She slammed her laptop shut, frustration radiating off her. This is insane. He's just bitter because we succeeded. What does he think this is going to accomplish? He's only making himself look desperate. I rubbed my temples, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. But it's not just him, Sarah. The media is eating this up. They love a good scandal, and now we're at the center of it. Then we fight back, she said, resolve hardening her features. We need to show everyone the truth. We can't let him win. I nodded. Doubt gnawed at me. What if it's too late? What if this spirals out of control? We're already walking a tightrope here. Mike, he said, placing a hand on my arm. We need to stand together. If we let this slide, we'll lose everything. Our reputation, our investments, they'll all go down the drain. Right, I said, trying to convince myself. But how? We can't just issue a press release and hope for the best. Let's confront him, she suggested, her eyes gleaming with determination. If we can get him to admit he's lying, we can turn this around. Confront him? Are you sure that's wise? I hesitated, picturing David's smirk and the venomous words he could throw at us. Do you have a better idea? She shot back, her voice rising. We can't keep running from this. He's not going to back down on his own. I took a deep breath, weighing my options. Fine, let's meet him. We need to be careful. He's unpredictable. Agreed, he said, her expression softening. We'll find a way to outsmart him together. We've come too far to let him ruin everything. The next day, we arranged to meet David at a coffee shop in town. I arrived early, my nerves on edge as I watched people go about their business, oblivious to the storm brewing in my life. When Sarah walked in, her presence soothed some of my anxiety. We exchanged a determined glance before David strolled in, confident grin plastered on his face. "Look who it is," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "The golden couple of the investment world. How's it feel to have your dirty laundry aired for everyone to see?" "Cut the crap, David," I said, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "You're spreading lies and you know it. We're here to put an end to this." He chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "And why would I do that? Watching you two squirm has been the highlight of my week." "Because it's pathetic," Sarah interjected, her eyes narrowing. "You're not just hurting us, you're ruining your own reputation. Is that really the legacy you want to leave behind?" David's smile faltered for a moment. I seized the opportunity. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about the truth. You don't retract your statements, we'll fight back. We'll expose you for who you really are." "Is that a threat?" he asked, his voice low, the humor fading. "No, it's a promise," I replied, feeling the weight of conviction in my words. The atmosphere grew tense, and for a brief moment we locked eyes, each of us assessing the other. David's bravado cracked, revealing a flicker of uncertainty. "You don't want to go down this path, trust me," finally said, his voice colder. "We'll see about that," Sarah said defiantly, as we stood to leave. I felt a mixture of relief and dread. Confrontation may have ended for now, but the battle was far from over. As we stepped into the bustling street, I couldn't help but wonder if we had unleashed a monster we couldn't control. The tension in the room was palpable as I confronted David. Familiar face that once brought comfort now felt like a stranger, twisted by envy and resentment. Flickering light from the nearby street lamp cast shadows on his features, making him appear more sinister than I remembered. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that had been brewing for weeks. "Why, David?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. "Why are you doing this? We were friends." His lips curled into a bitter smile that lacked any warmth. "Friends? Is that what you call it? You and Sarah, living in your little bubble of success while I've been left in the dust? You think I'm gonna sit back and watch you thrive?" His words dripped with disdain. "I didn't ask for any of this." I shot back, frustration boiling over. I lost everything in that fire. This was a chance to rebuild, not just for me, but for everyone who's ever struggled. "You should understand that," he scoffed, shaking his head. "Understand? You think I don't know struggle? I've watched you rise from the ashes while I've been scraping by, and you didn't even look back. You left me behind." "David, I didn't forget you. We took different paths." I tried to reason, hoping to reach the friend I once knew. "But this isn't the way to handle it. Spreading rumors, that's not who you are." "Isn't it?" he challenged, stepping closer. "Maybe I'm just exposing the truth. You think you're better than everyone else now, don't you?" The mechanic turned investor. "Press can't get enough of you, but it's all built on lies. I know the truth about your family, Mike. I know how easy it would be to bring you down." Panic surged through me, cold and sharp. "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart racing. "What do you know?" "Let's just say your past isn't as clean as you'd like to believe. And if you don't want me to share it with everyone, you'll think twice about playing in the big leagues." His voice was smooth, but the threat was unmistakable. I felt the walls closing in. My mind raced back to everything I had worked for, everything I had built with Sarah. "You wouldn't dare," I said, my voice low. "This isn't just about me anymore. It's about Sarah too." "Ah yes, the ambitious neighbor who thinks she can ride your coattails to glory. I've seen this story before, Mike. People get greedy. They forget who their friends are when the stakes get high." His eyes gleamed with satisfaction at my discomfort. "David, you're not being fair," I pleaded. "You're letting jealousy blind you. We can still fix this. We can go back to how things were." "Fix this?" He laughed, harsh mocking sound. "There's no going back. You've climbed too high, and I'm not willing to let you step on my neck as you reach for the stars. If I can't have what you have, then you won't have it either. As simple as that." I could feel the betrayal cutting deeper than any knife. You're willing to destroy everything just to make a point? You were supposed to be my friend. Friendship is a two-way street, Mike. You chose your path. I'm choosing mine. Just know this. I won't be the last person to come after you. His eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I saw the hurt that lay beneath his anger. I don't want this to end like this, I said, desperation creeping into my voice. I want to work together. I want to rebuild our friendship. He paused, eyes flickering with something. Was it regret? But then, just as quickly, the mask of anger returned. Too late for that. Good luck keeping your precious reputation intact. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving me in a whirlwind of confusion and hurt. I stood there, the weight of his words crashing down on me. Felt like I was losing everything all over again. The shadows of the past loomed larger, and I was left wondering just how far David would go to see me fail. In that moment, I realized that the real challenge wasn't just about the money or the business. It was about the choices we made, the friendships we built and lost, and the darkness that could easily consume us all. As the weight of my decisions pressed heavily on my chest, I stood at the edge of the chaos we had created, staring into the abyss of our ambition. The flickering lights of the city below contrasted sharply with the storm brewing inside me. I could hear the distant hum of life continuing on, oblivious to the turmoil that had engulfed Sarah and me. I can't do this anymore, I finally admitted, my voice cracking under the strain. The words had been clawing their way out for days, but now they spilled forth like a long-held breath released. I turned to Sarah, who had been pacing the room, her brow furrowed in concentration. We've lost sight of what really matters. Do you mean? She asked, stopping in her tracks and facing me. Her eyes, usually so bright and determined, were clouded with uncertainty. We're on the verge of something huge, Mike. We can't just walk away. I shook my head, trying to find the words that would convey the turmoil I felt. But at what cost? We've built this empire based on a foundation of lies and deceit. I can't keep pretending that this is what I wanted. Her expression shifted, a mix of frustration and confusion. You think I'm just in it for the money? I thought we were in this together. I thought we were trying to make something better. I stepped closer, desperation clawing at my insides. I'm not saying that, but look at us. We're not the same people we were. This isn't just a business anymore. It's consuming us. Every decision feels like a gamble, and every success is tainted with fear. Look at what's happening between us. Sarah's shoulders slumped as she took a step back, tension thick in the air. You're right, she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. But what are we supposed to do, just give up everything we've worked for? I don't know, I replied, feeling the weight of my own indecision. But I do know that if we keep going like this, we'll lose ourselves completely. Maybe we need to step back, reevaluate everything. Step back? She echoed incredulously. You think that'll make the problems go away? You think David and Jack are just going to let us walk away? David is a toxic influence, I said, my voice rising with frustration. And Jack, he's been playing us against each other from the start. We're not just pawns in their game. We have a choice here. Silence enveloped us, laden with the weight of our unspoken thought. Finally, Sarah spoke again, her voice steadier. What if we confront David? Expose him for what he's doing? We can't let him win. We can't let anyone dictate our path. I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck as I considered her words. Confronting him could backfire. What if he has more dirt on us? We're already walking a tightrope. I don't know if we can afford to take that risk. Then we need to find another way, she insisted, her determination flaring. We can't just let this consume us. If we're going to get out of this, we need to do it together. I looked into her eyes, searching for the spark of the partnership we once had. Together, that's the key. But I can't keep chasing after this dream if it means sacrificing everything we've built, including our friendship. What do you propose? She asked, a hint of vulnerability creeping into her voice. Maybe we should take a break from the investments, I suggested hesitantly. Just for a while. Just for a while, we can reassess our goals, find out what we really want. We don't have to be defined by this whirlwind of money and fame. Sarah nodded slowly, her brow furrowing in thought. It might be the only way to find clarity, but it's a risk. What if we lose everything we've worked for? Then we'll figure it out together, I said, my resolve strengthening. We'll prioritize what matters most, even if it means starting from scratch. I believe we can rebuild, but not if we're caught in this cycle of greed and betrayal. Okay, he finally said, a hint of relief washing over her face. Let's do it. Let's step back and find our footing again. As we stood there, the weight of our decision was palpable. So was the flicker of hope. Together we could navigate this storm. But deep down, I knew the real battle lay ahead, and it would test not just our resolve, but the very essence of who we had become. As I stood in the grand ballroom, the glimmering chandeliers casting intricate patterns of light across the floor, a sense of unease washed over me. The gala was a dazzling affair, filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses, yet I felt a heavy weight in my chest. It wasn't the grandeur that troubled me, but the revelations that had recently come to light, particularly about the diary that had changed everything for Sarah and me. As I thumbed through the pages of that old charred diary, I realized it wasn't just a manual for financial success. It was a testament to a man's life, filled with regrets and lessons learned too late. I could feel the weight of the words resonate within me. He was searching for redemption, I murmured, half to myself, half to Sarah, who stood beside me, her eyes fixed on the pages. This isn't just about wealth. It's about understanding what really matters. That's the irony, isn't it? Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. He amassed so much, yet he lost sight of what truly counted. She looked up at me, her expression a mix of determination and vulnerability. We can't let the same happen to us, Mike. We have to do better. Suddenly, the air shifted, and I noticed a commotion near the entrance. Guests were parting, and in walked a figure that sent a shiver down my spine, Jack Thompson. His presence was magnetic, yet there was a darkness lurking behind that charming smile. I felt a surge of protective instinct toward Sarah as he approached us. "Ah, the rising stars," Jack announced, his voice smooth as silk. "How delightful to see you both thriving." His gaze flicked to the diary in my hands, a glint of curiosity sparking in his eyes. "Still clinging to the past, I see?" I clenched my jaw, feeling the tension crackle between us. "We're learning from it, Jack. Something you should consider." He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Learning? Or merely repeating history? You're not the first to think they could rewrite the narrative." He stepped closer, voice low and conspiratorial. "I hope you know what you're getting into." Before I could retort, Sarah interjected, her voice steady. "We're not afraid of the truth, Jack. Unlike some, we're not hiding behind our wealth and connections." The corner of his mouth twitched, impressed yet annoyed. "Bold words, Sarah, but the truth has a way of revealing itself when you least expect it." He glanced at the diary again, his expression shifting to one of feigned interest. "You know, it's funny how legacies can be twisted. What if I told you that your beloved magnate had secrets that might change your perception entirely?" I felt a rush of anger. "What do you want, Jack?" He leaned back, a smirk playing on his lips. "Just a friendly warning. You're treading on dangerous ground." With that, he turned and sauntered away, leaving a palpable tension in the air. "Is he right?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking slightly. "What if we're not prepared for what lies ahead?" I took her hands in mine, feeling the warmth of her touch. "We've already faced so much. We can't let fear dictate our path. We need to embrace the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is." As the night wore on, the gala continued around us, but I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. Later, as we stepped out onto the balcony to escape the crowd, the stars twinkled above, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. "Mike, there's something I need to tell you," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "You deserve to know the truth about me, about my family." "What do you mean?" I asked, concern etched on my face. She took a deep breath, her gaze unwavering. "My last name, it's not just a coincidence. I'm the heiress to the magnate's legacy. I never wanted to hide it from you, but I was afraid." Stunned, I stepped back, the revelation hitting me like a freight train. "You're serious?" "Yes," she affirmed, tears glistening in her eyes. "I wanted to restore my family's name, to correct the mistakes of the past. But it's not just about the money. It's about honor, about respect. I thought if we could succeed together, we could create something meaningful." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, feeling the weight of betrayal, but also understanding. "I didn't want you to see me differently. I wanted us to build something authentic, not based on my last name. She confessed, voice breaking. In that moment, clarity washed over me. The true essence of success wasn't in the wealth we accumulated, but in the lessons learned and the relationships forged. "We can do this together, Sarah," I said softly, placing my hand on her cheek. "Let's honor the past, but let's not be defined by it. We can create our own legacy." With renewed purpose, we returned to the gathering, ready to face whatever came next. We would turn the page on our story, ensuring that it was one of growth, redemption, and hope. Together, we would rebuild, not just a fortune, but a future grounded in the lessons of the past, forever determined to do things different. All right, so picture this. Maria finds a gold watch in the trash, and instead of cashing it in, she decides to use this chance to make a difference in her neighborhood. What she didn't see coming was how that small act would set off something way bigger. Curious to find out how a single mom and a lost watch turned the tide for an entire community? Click on the video popping up on your screen right now to see the incredible impact a little spark of hope can make. Trust me, you don't want to miss this.